Jeffrey, thank you so much for joining us today. As we begin, can you say a few words about your current role and what's in your purview?
Yeah, so currently I'm actually the CEO and founder of Resolute Cybersecurity Strategies.
Mhm.
The company just started in August of this year as I formally retired from American Electric Power in September. The focus of the company is actually cybersecurity strategies, policies, standards, data security, third-party risk, just trying to help a company get started in cybersecurity or to improve their cybersecurity strategy and make sure they have a proper strategy and they're not protecting things they don't need to and not protecting things that they should be. So I just want to make sure that I'm still providing value in the cybersecurity community.
I understand. And um, you mentioned AEP. So I understand you were there for a while, but how did you get into cybersecurity? What was the first door you knocked on?
So it's interesting my journey to cybersecurity because it started when I was actually in high school and I started programming in Basic and Basic Plus programming language, and it got my interest into technology in general as I was going through that. I took a long break after I got out of school and wasn't really working in technology for a very long time until I got to Berlin, Germany in 1989. And I had an office that I was running where we were doing military police investigations, and we needed to be able to put statistics into our computer, into a database. Well, the
Mhm.
computer was constantly breaking down, so I had to fix that, and that again regenerated my interest. But I would say that probably the biggest factor that led me to a cybersecurity career is the fact that I was a military policeman for 10 years in the U.S. Army, and I was doing a lot of risk analysis, risk avoidance, because I was providing protective services for senior ranking military members that would come to Berlin during the
Mhm.
time of the fall of the Berlin Wall. So I learned my risk analysis techniques and management techniques through that process because I was constantly evaluating where we were going, who we were going to see, and what the potential risks for our principals were. And then
Mhm.
having a technology background just kind of led itself to becoming a cybersecurity professional.
I understand. And from military police to AP, what were some of the steps in between?
So when I first got out of the military, I was actually working as a systems administrator for the Defense Finance and Accounting Services.
Mhm.
So I was still working for the DoD even after I got out of the military. From there, then I went into a consulting career, working for a company called DP Sciences out of Cincinnati, Ohio, where I was helping. I was actually a product. I was being sold, helping develop security strategies, security policy standards, and stuff of that nature.
Mhm.
I went to American Electric Power. I was there for 13 years. I started out as a security engineer contractor, and then I eventually turned into a full-time employee and then moved up to become a director of security assessments. And so my responsibilities in that space were penetration testing, application security, security architecture and engineering, vulnerability management, third-party risk, NERC-CIP operations, which NERC-CIP is the standards that the utility industry must work under. And then
Mhm.
also I had a joint business relationship that I started with another company, and they allowed me to manage that relationship for the period of time that I was there.
Mhm.
And I retired there in September 15th and started my own company.
I understand. What an amazing story, what an amazing career. You mentioned basic it kind of takes me back a few years, and also you mentioned Berlin before the wall fell. It has been a while, and that, like, as you've seen this space over the years, it certainly has exploded, and well, popularity probably the wrong word, but definitely an importance, and it's probably just a sign of a much bigger role that technology plays in our lives, both on the personal level and a company level, country, government level. And I think as a result, a lot more professionals are looking at the space to make a career, whether it's switching from technology to cybersecurity, or maybe earlier on, maybe still in college, just trying to figure out what to do with their lives. From your vantage point, I think a very unique perspective, both working for DoD and working for an infrastructure, kind of of huge infrastructure organization of huge importance. What would be your advice for someone who's kind of more junior, just getting started or looking to make a switch? What are some of the 2 or 3 things that they should be paying attention to or doubling down on to set them up for success?
Sure. So I would say first, if it's someone that's just recently graduated from college, for example, don't stop learning, because the world is changing so rapidly. If you think that you've learned enough in college, you're going to fall behind very quickly. So continue to look for opportunities to improve your skill set and improve your knowledge on the security industry. Second of all, don't think that you're going to jump right in and be a full-fledged security member day one, because what you learn in school is a good basis, a good background to get started with. But again, a lot of what you know about cybersecurity, you learn as you do, and as you see the different attacks and the different things that are going on. So don't think that you're going to run in at $120,000 a year job and hit the ground being a full-fledged pen tester or something of that nature. And then thirdly, listen to others around you. And again, I think that the whole premise of what I'm trying to say focuses around learning and listening and continuing to build your knowledge and skills, because it's everybody has a different background. I came from the military. Others came from manufacturing or utilities or other spaces, and everybody does things a little bit differently. So if you listen to others and hear the things that they do or did, you may pick up some best practices that you can apply into your industry that you didn't even think of because of the way your industry operates. So, and that's kind of where I grew, and how I grew is I kept listening to others and trying to figure out what's a different way that we can do this in this industry that the industry hasn't already thought of. And I've been in manufacturing, I've been in education, I've been in healthcare, I've been in energy utility, I've been in military. So I've had a wide experience, and I think because of that wide experience, that's what made me successful, because I learned things at every place I went and brought those things to bear each step of my career.
Well, it makes a lot of sense, and it's to your point, things are changing so quickly. If you're not curious, if you're not constantly learning, at some point there'll be a new technology, new attack vector, something new, something you haven't seen before. And if you're not keeping up with the pace of change, you're not setting yourself for success. So it certainly makes a lot of sense. And kind of from that perspective, from what you see now, from your experience, most recently, in your view, what are some of the top challenges facing CISOs right now? What would make top 3 things that are top of mind for CISOs right now?
So I think the number one thing that's just really starting to emerge is ChatGPT and AI. Because we've not fully experimented with the capabilities of it and don't know what the full impact of those technologies could be in an attack scenario, for example. We need to be very wary and be very well educated on those technologies, ensure that we know how they can be used, and then how can we detect a malicious use of that technology in our environment. So we're going to have to come up with new techniques to detect it and to be able to defeat it if we find that there is a malicious activity. So that's probably the first one. The second one is that and I'll say the energy utility space, but anybody that has OT or operational technology, we're seeing more and more integration of the operational technology with information technology. So making sure that you know where your connection points are and know that you have the ability to separate those technologies when needed, so that an attack on a corporate environment can't pass into your operational environment and cause harm. Colonial Pipeline was a very specific example where they weren't sure they had the proper separation between their operational environment and their corporate environment. So they had to shut the pipeline down to protect it because they weren't sure that it wouldn't pass through. So being very diligent and making sure that you know what your controls are between those two environments and having the ability to separate them. So that's a key one. And of course, with the energy utility space, that means the grid is at risk if you're not doing those types of things. So we don't want to lose electricity. We don't want to lose gas or water. So each of those areas needs to be very diligent about making sure they have the proper controls in place. And then the other, is just what's the new technology that's coming out today? I mean, the ChatGPT is the latest, but what's next? And staying up and abreast of that. Cloud is a huge area that a lot of people haven't focused enough attention on yet. So
Mhm.
just keeping up with that and knowing what's available in the cloud and what those attack vectors might be through the cloud into your corporate environment or into your operational technology environments as well.
Certainly, and well, as far as new technologies, one thing that I keep hearing more and more, probably, I mean, ChatGPT obviously and AI is taking everyone's attention, but before that, everyone was talking about quantum computing and how when it's fully fledged, it will take away a lot from cryptography and will essentially render keys and encryption maybe not obsolete, but certainly a lot more vulnerable than before. And obviously, kind of it went a little bit to the back burner with AI and ChatGPT, but it's certainly something that I know that state actors are working on, and it's certainly on the horizon. And to your second point, which is separating corporate environment and kind of the underlying grid, I think one of my favorite examples is the Stuxnet, which essentially is what happened, right? Because it was a custom built tool that ended up infecting chips. So essentially, you can upgrade your system however many times you want, and at the end of the day, the virus was already embedded in the tech stack level, and it was just absolutely deadly as a result, if you know that story.
Yeah, yeah, and so you actually brought another key point to mind that I would say is another area that we probably need to focus, and that's on our supply chain. Looking at what the contents of the software and hardware that we're purchasing and putting into our environments are, and knowing how they impact the operation of that technology, and whether or not someone has compromised any portion of that particular piece of hardware or software that may be used against the companies that are putting it into their environment. I was very involved with third-party risk and making sure that we evaluated our vendors, and we were just getting into more depth with the hardware bill of materials and software bills of materials to make sure we had a better understanding of the products that we were purchasing. And then, of course, foreign ownership control and involvement or influence in in products, whether they're actually manufactured in a country that may not be friendly to your particular country or not, knowing where that product or the components of that product are built and how they're put in there, and whether they could be potentially influenced for malicious use.
Certainly, it's to your point. What we're seeing more and more is that organizations invariably, when they're building software, they rely on open source libraries, and those are usually, not all of them, but a lot of them are maintained by effectively volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually they burn out or move on to other projects, and those repositories, those accounts are vulnerable for takeover. And then you just push an update to 5,000 organizations with potentially malicious, I know, trying to backdoor them or what have you, because it's that code, that particular library is already embedded in some of the software that they've built. So it's certainly, definitely, when we have seen some of those examples fairly recently, where this becomes an angle, this becomes a vector of an attack, which some organizations may or may not be even thinking about.
Yeah, SolarWinds was one of those that it wasn't necessarily open source, but not vetting the changes that are being made in the software product before you put it into your environment. So SolarWinds was a patch that was released that had been compromised by a third party, and it was installed in a number of different organizations, and then their systems became compromised. So having the ability to know what's in that particular software package and know whether it's the legitimate software package that was intended for distribution or whether it had been compromised, that's all part of that supply chain process, and knowing what the contents are and who's had the opportunity to influence those contents.
Certainly. Jeffrey, I have a question for you. So now you are the founder and CEO of effectively, for what I understand, a cybersecurity consulting organization. And before, you were director at a large, it's probably Fortune 500 company. So you kind of sat on both chairs as the buyer, evaluator of cybersecurity solutions, and now you're effectively a purveyor of cybersecurity services. So you kind of have the benefit of being exposed to both worlds. every time we bring the subject of vendors within Affinia community, it's almost always kind of invokes a very strong reaction, because on the one hand, obviously, CISOs rely on vendors for the cybersecurity stack for assistance and advice, but often some CISOs see that they get 10,000 emails on a weekly basis from vendors trying to pitch them certain services. So there's a lot of this kind of, it's not completely frictionless relationship between buyers of cybersecurity and vendors. Now that you've sat on both chairs, what will be your advice for vendors on how to focus on building a relation, providing value before asking for a contract or proof of concept or some sort of assignment?
That's a very interesting question, because being in the purchasing side for so long and buying other product, the things that bothered me the most when I was a purchaser were people misrepresenting their product, or spending so much time beating up the competitor's product that they really never told us the value of their product. So I think that, honesty and transparency in the business relationship from a vendor is very important. And I take that to heart with my own company as I try to develop relationships. I want to be very transparent with the people that are asking me to do services for them. If I don't know, I'm not going to tell them that I do know. And if I don't know and I have the ability to find someone that does, then I'll be transparent that I'm going to bring somebody else in to assist me in that particular project. But I also hate the hard sales pitches. Tell me what you've got, show me what you've got, and then let me make the decision. But don't harass me every day for weeks on end as to whether or not I've made the decision. Sure, check in with me every once in a while, just make sure it's still top of mind, but don't try to beat me up and try to, tell me that you have to buy this product. And I've actually had vendors that have told me that, and it just discouraged me and made me want to go another direction.
Certainly, and it goes back to the initial premise is like, if you treat everyone with respect and focus on the long game, not on the short, don't be transactional. Don't misrepresent. Don't make whatever you say or do, just try to make the person in front of you succeed, help them to succeed, and then you'll be taken care of. Don't lead with what you want. Again, don't focus on the transaction aspect of it. I think we'll go along. That's what we're hearing out there. It's just, but I think it goes to cybersecurity vendors need to incentivize their salespeople and marketing people the right way to promote good behavior, not the behavior that rubs CISOs the wrong way, because there's enough fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and all those kind of messages. Then, oh, I'm so sorry that you got breached. If only you used our product. That this is just it lands completely flat. Which sometimes we see CISOs venting on LinkedIn and just not always, but kind of naming names, but kind of putting almost, this is what I received, almost as a way to discourage that kind of behavior. But I appreciate your feedback. It's certainly very helpful. I know in your line of work, you're probably a member of so many different groups and meetups and associations. At Affinia, on the one hand, we believe that cybersecurity is a team sport, because the bad guys have to be right once to be successful, for their attack to succeed, but the good guys need to be right as defenders 100% of the time. So it certainly helps to collaborate. And there are so many different groups from, whether it's meetups or associations. I'm sure you're part of so many of them. And we try new things. We try, whether it's virtual roundtables or meetups or face-to-face events and things like this. And some of them are successful, some of them are not. So we're always keen on asking for feedback. What is that we're doing that could be improved, and what maybe some of the other organizations are doing that in your view is valuable, that Affinia members can benefit from as well? What will be your advice for us?
So the one thing that I try to do in everything that I do, because I'm not just a cybersecurity professional, I'm also a certified executive bourbon steward, And in both of those roles, I try to make sure that every interaction that I have with someone is a learning opportunity, that I try to teach them something new that they haven't heard before, or try to fill in the gaps where they may have heard something about it but don't know the totality of it. So I try to make sure that I am presenting it in a manner, not saying, hey, I'm the best, this is, the only way you can go, but here's the things that you can learn from this, or here's the ways that I can help you improve what you're doing. So I think that if there's a learning element in every opportunity that you have to interact with someone, I think that's going to show your value to the industry as a whole.
I understand. Jeffrey, last question. As I know we're coming up on time, it went by so fast. Imagine you have a crystal ball and can see into the future. In your view, 12 months from now, CISOs, cybersecurity executives will be concerned about, anxious about, excited about what 3 technologies or themes or threats will be top of mind?
So I'm going to stick with the Chat GPT AI type technology. Of course, that's going to be one of them. I think that, I think I'm going to go back to a lot of what I said earlier. The supply chain, not just the cybersecurity aspects of the supply chain, but the totality of the supply chain, from the point of this initiation of the development of a product, whether it be hardware or software, all the way to the point of delivery. And what are the potential risks in between? What are the shipping risks? What are the potential compromise risks and all that? So it's more than just cybersecurity. It's, what is the, if you're very focused on ESG or DEI, what are those risks to your company and what you want to have in your company and what to want to represent? And in purchasing a product that, maybe you don't know the totality of what's behind that product, and now you've misrepresented your company by getting into a relationship with someone that you didn't really fully vet. So I think, making sure that you're vetting every opportunity fully and knowing what you're getting into before you get into it. I think those are probably the primary things, is the supply chain and the Chat GPT AI type technologies. And then, of course, the things that we don't know. There's so technology is changing so quickly. There's going to be something new next week and even next year, and we've got to just keep up with it. So just, making sure that you're giving your people the opportunity to learn and grow as the industry changes, as the world changes, and make sure that they're able to practice their craft and stay up to date with the craft that they've chosen.
100%. Jeffrey, thank you so much. This was very interesting. What's the best way for people to find you? What's the best way to connect?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, both as an individual, Jeffrey Sweet, but also my company, Resolute Cybersecurity, is on LinkedIn. I can also be found on Facebook, or you can just reach out to me at jeffrey.sweet.rcs@gmail.com.
Great. Thank you so much. And I guess very last question. What kind of organizations do you usually work with as clients in terms of size or industry?
I will work with anybody. I've had a very broad experience. I mean, I've been very heavily focused the last 13 years in energy utility, but I have a broad spectrum of experience, and I think that my strategies can be applied across any industry. And it doesn't matter the size. I'll make myself available as a consultant or an advisor. I don't even have to be fully involved in the activity, but I'll help advise, guide as well.
I understand. Jeffrey, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. You have a great day. Bye.